Now, your hosts, Vicki Hyman and Erin Medley.
Hello and welcome to TV Hangover. I am Erin Medley, here with Vicki Hyman. We are here for another week. Follow me on Twitter at @E_meds. Vicki at Vicki Hy, VICKIHY. I will say that normally Vicki is tweeting up a storm during The Bachelor, and I am right there with her. But this week I was all alone, and I don't know what happened.
What happened is that my son left for Mexico at like 5 o'clock this morning, and it's been just all week long packing and buying and doing and whatever. And I didn't end up watching The Bachelor until like late on Monday night. That's what happened.
There are some things more important than your son going to Mexico.
Well, I hope they let him back in, but yeah.
I know. Oh my gosh. I'm glad you said it, because that was also my concern.
He said it. He said, I'm like, Theo, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Will he though?
I hope.
He'll have to crawl under the wall or whatever.
Although he is a teenager, so like the other day, somebody's like, "Why is he going to Mexico?" I'm like, "Well, I was just sending him. I'm taking him to the airport, giving him some money. Just go somewhere else. Just go somewhere else until you're 18." Anyway.
That works. Vicki, let's get into the news. This week we saw the finale, or the season finale of The Celebrity Apprentice on NBC.
Did we see the season finale, Erin? Did we?
I did.
Did you watch? I didn't watch it.
Here's what I'll tell you. It was an hour. Normally
thank God.
The Apprentice is 2 hours, right? It was, 10:50 when I decided that I would watch the finale. And I said, I will be done by the time Watch What Happens Live comes on. And that's at 11 p.m. I watched an hour-long show in 10 minutes.
It can be done.
And then you just fast forward through the talking.
Who were the, I know who won.
Okay. The finalists were Matt Eisman, who is the co-host of American Ninja Warrior, and Boy George, who is Boy George.
Both of whom I was fairly impressed with in the 2 or 3 episodes I actually watched this season.
Agreed. However, I heard some disturbing news this morning on EW Radio, where apparently they shot 2 endings.
Really?
And Matt Eisman didn't know he'd won until he watched on Monday night. I kid you not.
Well, that sounds very disingenuous, which is completely going against what reality TV is all about. I mean, I'm just shocked. I'm shocked.
Oh, your sarcasm, Vicki.
Yes.
I just think that's so bizarre. Like, what's the point of that? Like, what was the determining factor? You know, that, we decide Matt Eisman's going to be the winner. Like, what were they waiting for? I
mean, and also this was filmed, taped how long ago? Like, they couldn't.
At least a year.
It took them this long? Is it like Donald Trump took 3 weeks to figure out that maybe this Michael Flynn thing was a problem? I mean, what is the problem? I want to set an investigation into this. I do.
I love that we've had our second Donald Trump direct mention. Well, this is the first one was indirect. The second one was direct. Let's just keep it going. So that was weird. But the actual news out of the Celebrity Apprentice season finale is that the ratings were down, and it finished last amongst the 4 broadcast networks.
Mm-hmm. Is Trump tweeting about it yet?
All right. So Trump, no, he didn't. He didn't tweet because he's too busy tweeting about how the government is trying to cover up for Hillary Clinton campaign's loss. Loss. Yeah. That was the tweet.
I hadn't heard that one yet.
Like, we don't care about Mike Flynn. The whole Mike Flynn is a distraction.
From the leaks.
From the leaks.
Are about Mike Flynn. Okay, anyway, I'm sorry. This is the wrong podcast. Okay.
I know. We are delving into deep waters there. Okay, so the Apprentice season finale was down 47%.
Oh my God.
Among adults 18 to 49.
From
the last season that was hosted by Trump in 2015.
Well, obviously Donald Trump needs to come back and host it. And make Celebrity Apprentice great again.
He really does. But I told you what the Celebrity Apprentice suffered from this season. I just think that the cast was just blah. Meh.
I mean, there wasn't any Omarosa standout as far as I could tell, but I thought they were entertaining enough. I didn't have much of a problem with the cast. I really don't think that Arnold was a very good. I think the charm of Celebrity Apprentice is Donald Trump. I really do. I think he adds that special magic element to it.
But don't you also think that the 2 advisors add something to it, because we've already talked about it, but I think Arnold's nephew, whatever his name, Patrick.
Yes, I agree.
Was boring, and then they kept rotating the other advisor. Like, I really liked Ivanka on The Celebrity Apprentice and Don Jr.
I don't really remember them so much. I always go back to George. Had a little
And
crush on
Carolyn.
George. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
original. All right. In other news, Ryan Murphy has confirmed American Crime Story season 4. By the way, season 4.
Season 2 hasn't even come out yet.
It's not even coming out this year. Like,
I know.
this is ridiculous. All right. American Crime Story season 4 will tackle Monica Lewinsky scandal, and Sarah Paulson is attached to the project. That part's not a surprise.
But she's not playing Hillary Clinton, right? Or is she playing Hillary Clinton?
She is not playing Hillary Clinton,
Okay.
but we do not know who she is playing. And so the show is going to be based off of Jeffrey Toobin's book, A Vast Conspiracy, the real sex scandal that nearly brought down a president. And of course, Jeffrey Toobin wrote, the Run of His Life? The
O.J. Simpson
like
book
that.
that they optioned The People versus O.J. Simpson for.
Yes, The Run of His Life, The People versus O.J. Simpson. Yeah, so American Crime Story season 2 is expected in 2018. So, like, when the heck are we going to see season 4? Like 2020? Like, what are
I don't know. I'm actually so excited about this that I wish that they wouldn't do the Gianni Versace one, which is season 3, and put this one ahead of that, because I just think it's much more interesting.
Well, in 2020, Hillary may or may not run again.
I don't think so.
You never know.
Okay.
So the timing is interesting there. Do you think that Ryan Murphy is stretching himself too thin? Because he doesn't seem to me like a producer who's hands off. Like, he's not just coming up with the ideas and letting other people run with it. Like, he's coming up with the ideas and then he's very hands on in the process. And he has a million shows he's juggling. He has Feud coming out soon, American Horror Story, American Crime Story. Like, I'm sure there are other shows. Like, do you think he's stretching?
There's Scream Queens too, right?
That is correct. Scream
and I
Queens.
think Scream Queens might be. It's funny because of all of them, I think Scream Queens is most similar to what we have associated in the past with Ryan Murphy, like Nip Tuck, Glee, over the top, completely over the top, and this like weird mashup. Whereas American Crime Story, the O.J. Simpson thing did not feel like, prime Ryan Murphy in the aesthetic sense. And but it turned out to be so great. I can tell you that Feud is amazing, and he seems to be very haunted. I was sitting like two seats down from him during the screening, and he was completely into it. I got to tell you, Feud is great. And so if this is what happens when Ryan Murphy stretches himself and Feud is what comes out of it, I am all for it. No problem with it. But get rid of Scream Queens. Give the guy a little bit of a break.
I'm excited to see Feud. And the teaser that they released or whatever it was looked good. And Scream Queens can die as far as I'm concerned. What they need to do is reboot Popular. Remember that show?
I know what it is, but I never watched it.
Oh my gosh, so good. Like, go back into the Ryan Murphy oeuvre and see and watch Popular. So let's move on to our, I personally believe our most important segment every week. And for those of you who don't care, I'll let you know that we will also be discussing This Is Us, Riverdale, the new show Doubt, and we have an interview with Artie Lange coming up about Crashing. But before we get to all that, we will talk about The Bachelor. And a little newsy this week. The producers... A
little newsy? Major news in the Bachelor universe.
Yes, but I have okay, but let's say it. The next Bachelorette will be Rachel Lindsay, who is an African-American lawyer from Dallas, Texas.
Dallas?
Okay, good. From Dallas, Texas, who's currently appearing on Nick Viall's season. So the big news there, of course, is that she's Black, the first Black Bachelorette. It's about darn time.
Can I ask you a question about this, since you are the Bachelor
because I'm
expert?
Black?
And it is about something Black, where
Okay,
I will expose my profound racism, I'm sure.
Always.
So I was thinking about this. I don't know the general type of contestant that becomes the Bachelorette, whether they always pick the nice girl or whatever. But it seems I was thinking about, a lot of what people said about Barack Obama becoming president, that you have to be like twice as good to get half as far. You have to just be like incredibly calm and cool and collected. And it seems like Rachel, especially compared to the other African-American contestant, Jasmine, who turned out to be a hot mess.
Crazy.
Rachel is just like, she is holding herself together. She is fairly drama-free when it comes to, she really presents herself really well. And I'm thinking, is this the only way you can have a Black woman become the Bachelorette? You're shaking your head.
So 2 things. Number 1, had you been on Twitter on Monday, you would see that I said, what's her name? Danielle Blondie, Danielle.
Is she still on it?
No, she's not on anymore.
Okay.
Soft talker with the short blonde hair.
Oh, the nurse, the pediatric nurse.
Yes.
Yes, okay. The one who I called from the beginning. I was very sad about that.
Yes, her. She, in another season, would have been the Bachelorette. 100%. Like, she is, as I tweeted, the cookie cutter Disney princess that they would have made.
A good girl.
The Bachelorette. 100%. Because the Bachelorette goes one or two ways. They either go with like the wholesome all-American girl who doesn't cause drama, or they go with like the sort of not bad girl, because she's not bad in a way that she's disliked, but she's sort of more confident in herself. They go with that girl. That's Andy, or JoJo, or Caitlin Bristow. That's that type of Bachelorette. Rachel is interesting because, as I've told you and we've talked about on the show, she has made it far. Like, there has never been an African-American contestant who's made it this far. So she's not doing anything that's out of the ordinary for a future Bachelorette. It's just that we've never had a Black Bachelor or contestant make it this far for us to get to know them in any way where they would be considered to be the Bachelorette. Does that make sense? Because it's usually someone who's like farther on in the process.
Well, the other thing I was interested in is that we don't really know that much about Rachel. And I didn't know if this is like something, we don't know a lot about any of these women until the hometown dates. I mean, obviously we know a lot about a few of them, like Corinne.
I don't know. I disagree.
What have we really learned about Rachel?
Her dad's a federal judge.
Yes.
She herself is a lawyer. She's very, protective of her heart and her feelings.
How is
when
that
it comes
from...
to, but the way that she says it just seems more genuine. Like, she actually means it. Not that she's on a TV show and someone's told her to say those things. Like, everything about her to me seems very natural. And I think that's why people like her. There's no pretension there. And that's why the other Danielle, the one who went home last week, I don't know her last name, Elle maybe. That's why when Nick was like, so what do you want out of a relationship? And she's like, well, I want someone to love me. Like, all the answers that you could pull out of a book. Like, I've never had that. I've never gotten that impression from Rachel that she was just saying what she thought she had to say, So in that way, I think we do know her better than we know some of the other ladies. Okay, so moving on, so we can get to this Artie Lange interview, which I know everyone's thrilled for.
What was that?
So this was a little bit of a spoiler announcing Rachel as the Bachelorette, because she's still on the freaking show. We were only down to 6. So
now
I
suppose they did that. Why couldn't they wait until next week, presumably when she gets kicked off? Is she going to make it to the final 2?
I am so glad you brought that up. So I have a theory, and it very much has to do with her being the first Bachelorette. They have to, because Bachelorette starts shooting like right after the final episode of The Bachelor airs. They have to let the potential Bachelorette contestants know that their Bachelorette is Black, because while some people don't want to hear this, not everybody wants to date a Black girl. So they have to let them know. Like, they have to say, like, hey, look, our next Bachelorette is Black. So if you're going to apply, you need to be okay with dating a Black girl. Like, 100%.
See, they run those commercials, like, with every episode, like, do you want to date the next Bachelorette? But I was, like, really surprised, because I figured, like, this is such a business that I figured, like, they just have men, like a list of, like, 300 men lined up, and they just, like, take them off the top of the list.
No, they do. No. You are 100% correct. They do. But it's different, because they expect the next bachelorette to be a lovely young white woman. Like 100%. I have no doubt about this. I know it may make me sound racist. I'm not being racist at all. I just think it's realistic. And I think ABC, like, good on them for thinking this out, because the last thing you want to do is just populate the show with the next 30 guys on your list and none of them want to date an African-American woman. Like, that's not going to be good for anyone. So you want to give them that heads up. And if people want to apply specifically for Rachel, then that'd be awesome, because then she'd have a better chance at finding love. And that's why we're all here, right?
Yes, that's why we're all here, yes.
Okay, so as we said, this sort of spoiled the end because we know Rachel is not. Well, you know what? We don't know. Maybe he does pick Rachel and she says no. I don't know. You never know. We do know that he is going to visit Corinne's hometown, which means we get to see Raquel, the nanny.
Her best friend. Her best friend who waits on her and brings her cucumber slices. Okay.
Who traveled with her from New Jersey.
Yeah. Shout out to my best friends. You haven't been bringing cucumber slices. I'm very upset with you.
Agreed.
I also don't pay them.
Well,
my mother doesn't pay them.
Maybe that's the problem. Also, you don't run a multi-million-dollar business.
This is true.
And your vagine isn't platinum.
Hey, you don't know that. I also don't use the word vagine, and I can't stand it. And we finally heard, I'm sorry, we have to move on from The Bachelor, but like, after having heard that soundbite so many times, it was just over by the time she actually said it in the show. I didn't care. I didn't care.
I totally agree. And it's like, how many times are we going to play this before we actually hear her say it in context? Yeah. And it was like 5 or 6 times that night.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll have to see next week what happens on the hometown dates. We have Rachel, Corinne,
and 2 other people.
I know.
I don't know.
What are their names?
I don't know. Oh, the one who looks like the one from New Jersey, but she's from the South. How's that?
Raven
with the black hair, yes.
And the other one from Canada.
I don't know.
The French Canadian.
Is she blonde? I don't know.
No, brown haired. All right, whatever. Got it. Those 4. We're so invested. All right, let's move on to talk about something that you and I discussed last week after the show, and I thought we should bring it to the show, and that is the state of This Is Us. I was saying how I am totally over the show, and you know how much I love Sterling K. Brown.
Are you really over the show? I didn't get that impression.
I'm over it. We
talked about it last time.
I'm over it. I'm so over it. I just think that they have pulled the heartstrings one too many times, and the stories are just not as engaging as they were in the beginning. And I think the show is suffering from having too many episodes, and it would have been better as like a 13 episode season.
I agree with you on that one. However, I still am behind the show, and I think that the storylines that are weak are still the storylines that were weak. And we're talking about Kevin's whole theater, his whole acting thing, and then we suddenly get his childhood love, which was like a nice little reveal, actually, I have to say.
Was it though? Because he had just bounced between those other 2 women, and now all of a sudden he has an ex-wife, and I was like, what?
I thought that was interesting because, well, they showed him with the party episode in the flashbacks how he wanted to do the parties. He wanted to be able to be with Kate's friend. So I think that they laid the groundwork very nicely for that one. But I will say the fact that Kevin just like did bounce between those 2 women, I didn't enjoy that at all. And I certainly didn't enjoy it last night when he leaves opening night, just like of his play, to go be with Randall, who is having a nervous breakdown. That said, I enjoyed having this late edition of Randall having this history of stresses and anxiety. And, we're both huge Sterling K. Brown fans. And so I appreciated seeing him crumple a little bit because he has been so on top of everything. And you could always tell that he's tightly wound. And so I found it very believable. And even though Kevin did leave opening night, which I find incredibly unbelievable, the fact that he thought about what his father would do and went to Kevin, I thought was beautiful. I liked it.
Of course you did. So
what? You were not moved at all?
No, I wasn't
Stone.
moved in the least. I will also say one of the other things that really turns me off about This Is Us, and it just like builds every week, is that really fake New York set that they have. Like it drives me insane. The fact that Kevin is like sprinting down a New York street to go wherever the heck it is Randall was. I was like, oh, this is not real. I want to see someone sprint down the sidewalk in New York City and not have another person trip them. Like, let's be honest.
I have to tell you, like, the other thing, like, nitpicky me was like, okay, so Randall went to work in New York City from New Jersey, where he lives. And then in the middle of the day, even though he's got the presentation in the afternoon, goes home to New Jersey, spends 5 minutes with his father and the nurse, and then goes back to New York. He's a little bit late. But I mean, like, I was not liking that either. But, you know, I'm like, that is just because I like to nitpick.
I like to nitpick too.
The other storyline that I find kind of grating to me is Kate and Toby. Even though I love Toby, I'm a big Toby fan, I like Kate. I think my former colleague Alan Sepinwall talked about this last week, that it's like the only storyline Kate has is her weight, and everything is about the weight. And I just want to see more of her. Like, why exactly did Toby fall in love with her?
I don't know.
You know, it's like she's so single-minded, and they've gone back and forth. He is like, I think she dumped him twice or something because he's distracting from her weight loss. The woman is 36 years old, and either I don't understand like how Toby is like the man, this wonderful man who loves her, is distracting her from something that she should have been doing probably for like 10, 15 years. And that seems kind of lame. And I am so glad she's finally out of the fat camp, because that guy, Duke, okay.
When he closed the door in her face, like, you want to know why I can be such a jerk? My parents own the place. And then he like closed the door in her face, and I was like, okay, that's just ridiculous.
And you're out of here. Like, she's not paying good money for this, which I find absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, can I say one word? Jobs. Do Toby and Kate not have jobs they have to go back to? Toby's living, they live in California. They're now in New York. Toby's just like wandering around, hanging out with Kevin. It's like, do they not have jobs?
Their job is to be fat.
Okay.
That's the job that
for the show.
Yes. For the show. Yeah, totally. And then can we just go to Rebecca and Jack for a moment? And I talked about this last week. I don't remember if it was on air or if it was after the show, but I do not like the way that they're constantly, in my mind, setting up Rebecca to be the bad guy. Like, at every turn, she has done something wrong. And I just totally dislike that. And Jack is held up to be the saint. Although, spoiler alert, if you have not seen Tuesday night's episode, we see at the end that Jack goes back to drinking. And we know that at this point in the show, so basically I've turned This Is Us into Quantico, where I'm just trying to figure out the mystery of how Jack died.
You know what? I'm sorry, Erin. I am totally not trying to figure out the mystery. I am not reading any of there was like the disturbing theory behind Jack's death. I don't want to read any of it. I just want to let it unspool for me. I'm fine with that.
I'm not reading anything. I'm just picking up the references or like the things that they're inferring. So he went to the bar and had a drink, and he was savoring it and it was around the time where, I mean, like where we've seen in the past, like the kids were the age where he passed away.
With the funeral. Yeah.
With the funeral happened. Yeah. So I'm thinking, like, was he in a drunk driving accident? That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I can think about it in my mind, but I don't want to get involved in like different theories and spoilers online. I just don't want to do it.
I agree. I'm not going to look anything up, but I don't know. I mean, I will finish watching the season. I do want to see where it goes. I just think that I need stronger stories to be told every week.
I would agree on a couple of the points. I'm still fine with the flashbacks and learning and how they're learning what happened with Jack. And I did feel like the moment where Kate couldn't talk about her father's death. And as somebody who's lost their father, I totally was feeling that moment for her. Although I did think it was a little bit of a trick. Like, oh, we're going to find out. No, I can't tell you now.
Yeah, but even with that, I mean, I know that you've lost your father. I've lost my mother. And fairly recently. She's 36. Like, he died when she was like 17 or 16. It's been like 20 years.
My father died. I mean, my father, you don't want to go to the story, but like my father has been gone for like 15 or so years, and it still affects me very, very much so.
But even when someone asks you, like, you can't even talk about, like, she couldn't find the word.
Erin,
really?
I start crying. Okay, I
Oh
had a
my
conversation with
gosh.
somebody in this office who is in a sort of a similar situation, and like I just start crying. I can't help it.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's my cold heart. We all know how I am.
Maybe.
Although I love my mother, but I'm just saying. All right. Well, this is us. We'll keep up with it. If you guys have any opinions, feel free to tweet us at Remote Podcast, at @E_meds, or at Vicki High, VICKIHY. We're going to move on and talk about Riverdale quickly here. It's a show that Vicki and I were and still are both high on. I think that we watched like 4 episodes before it even aired.
You watched 4, and I watched 3, and apparently whatever it was about the 3rd episode, which we're about to talk about, you're saying it goes even bigger in the 4th.
Well, it doesn't go bigger in the 4th, but the story continues and like some interesting things happen. But I don't think the show has as much buzz as it had before it started airing. Like, no one's watching the show. It's always last in its time slot. Yeah. But I know critics are high on it, and I really liked it. And I have it recording weekly on my DVR so that once we get to the 5th episode, I don't miss it.
I have to do that so I don't miss the 4th episode.
Do it. Don't forget. So in this 3rd episode of the season, our girl Betty, the all-American blonde, affluent Betty, went total psycho. Right?
Nuts. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It was crazy. To give a little backstory, Veronica goes out with like the big man on campus, Chuck Clayton, and then she thinks everything's great, and then it turns out like he's trying to slut shame her, and she says that she did something called a sticky maple, which I just don't even want to know about. And so she's really upset about it. Betty gets upset about it too. And we see, what's her name? Edith Muggs, played by Barb from Stranger Things, who comes forward and says that, oh, these guys actually have a scorebook where they talk about, all their conquests and stuff. And so they go undercover. Betty and Veronica do this sort of sting to get Chuck Clayton to admit all this stuff. And at first it seems fairly harmless. They're in a jacuzzi and, Veronica's there. Then Betty comes out with like this black wig and I don't know, this like, I can't remember, like, was it like a dominatrix bathing suit? Yeah. I don't even know what was going on there. And then Betty starts channeling her sister Polly, who we haven't met yet, but we know sort of went crazy after dating Jason Blossom.
Right.
And like pretending she's Polly and pouring maple syrup on him and turning up the jacuzzi to like boil him.
She was going to boil him to death.
It is wacko. And
she was crazy. And Veronica had to like snap her out of it. Like, hey Betty, it's okay. Like, we got our revenge. It's all good. So I think that is a very interesting turn of events. And I think one of the theories that I had is that maybe Betty is her sister.
I thought the same thing, but then I was like, she can't be because everybody knows that Polly's away. But I actually thought the same thing, like her mother is just pretending that there's a Polly.
Right.
But I don't think that can be the case.
Do you think are they twins? They're not twins because Cheryl
I got
and
the feeling
the other
that Betty was younger.
Right. Okay.
Than Polly.
Well, I don't know, but that Betty has a lot of skeletons in her closet because she totally went crazy. And I can say that in the 4th episode, we don't see crazy Betty again. But, I can only assume that she will come out in future episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that the Betty Veronica plot lines are the strongest thing about the show, and that Archie is like a distant second.
Agreed.
I don't really care that much.
Archie and his John Mayer career path.
Yes, that is like totally blows away Josie. So much so that now he's like, oh my God, you're brilliant. Please help me write songs.
I can't. I cannot.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll keep up on Riverdale. Vicki will start watching again this week, and I will get back on track next week. Okay. So premiering Wednesday night on CBS is a new show starring Katherine Heigl, Dule Hill, and Laverne Cox called Doubt. It is from former writers of Grey's Anatomy. Did I say it's airing on CBS? Did I miss that part? And it's basically about a law firm and the lawyers that work there. And I mean, like, what else can you say about it?
I know. I mean, well, I think that there's like one twist in that there's a main mystery where Katherine Heigl's character, I keep on wanting to call her Izzy Stevens. She's not.
No, she's not.
She is defending a pediatric surgeon played by Stephen Pasquale or something Pasquale. I don't know how to say his name.
Who is engaged to Philippa Sue from Hamilton? I'm just saying.
That's true. He's a Broadway guy. He was also on Rescue Me, and I have liked him in the past, although he was absolutely terrible in that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde modernization from like 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh,
but
I know.
Anyway, so this show is a little bit different in that there's like a main mystery. He's accused of killing his high school girlfriend many, many years ago. Izzy Stevens is falling in love with him. And so that's going to follow throughout the season. But in the meantime, the other lawyers deal with case by case procedural. There's like one case per week, which I did not find really compelling at all. It seemed very boilerplate.
How many episodes did you watch?
Just one. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah,
one.
I just watched the pilot too. So here's what I'll say to that. I'm going to give it my Sunday nap stamp of approval. This is a show that I am more than happy to record, and I will have it playing in the background as I take a good 45-minute nap. I will watch the first 5 minutes. I will nap for the next 45 minutes. And then for the last 10 minutes, I will see who did it.
Which will be the most famous person on the show, guest starring on the show that week.
Yes.
The one thing that I did find interesting is that, I'm a fairly big Judith Light fan. She turns up at the end of the first episode. I can't decide if it's a spoiler or not.
I don't think so.
Okay, so she basically, I'll just say this, she plays like a Catherine Ann Power type person, a person who was a radical in like the 70s and 80s, got involved in the death of, I think, a police officer. I think it's very similar to the Brinks robbery in Rockland County back in the 80s, which where I lived and I was very intimately familiar with. She goes on the run and then eventually she has a family. She eventually turns herself in and she's in prison. And so unlike Catherine Ann Power, who I think got out, she's still in prison and she has some sort of connection. I'll just say that. She has some sort of connection to the lawyers in the firm. And I just think Judith Light is great. So that seemed interesting to me.
No, I agree. Any show that employs Judith Light is okay in my book. It's just, I don't know. It's just another CBS procedural with a central mystery. There's nothing deep to it. And it's fine. Like, it's not terrible. It's fine.
Can I ask you, maybe this should just be another segment, but it's like, why do people keep trying to like turn Katherine Heigl's comeback into a thing? Does she really have that big a fan base that we have to give her yet another? Because this is her second one. The first one, The State of Affairs, failed.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, I'm like, I have nothing against Katherine Heigl. She's fine, but it's like, why build a show around her when you could build it around like 10 million other people? Although maybe she's a good person to build a very mediocre show around.
But I think that in this particular show, they have built it around her, but she is maybe like 33% of the star power, and then all of the other cast members make up the other 67%, and they're banking on that because Dule Hill is an actor that people love. I love. Yeah,
I do like Dule Hill.
And Stephen Pasquale is a very familiar face, so he like provides that level of comfort.
Laverne Cox, who is, I think they're trumpeting that she is the first transgender actor to play a main transgender character on broadcast TV.
She is the first transgender actor to play a lead.
Yeah, a main character.
Yeah. Well, because don't forget Candace Cain on Dirty Sexy Money.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, that's a classic. That's an Emmy-worthy performance, and I would encourage everyone to go back and watch that. I think it's on Netflix. Dirty Sexy Money is a good show. I love that show. I watched both seasons.
There were 2 seasons of that?
Yes. One was a shortened season. It was on ABC.
The first couple of episodes.
Starring Peter Krause.
Peter Krause.
Yes. Love that show. And one of the Baldwins.
Yeah, a lesser Baldwin.
Billy.
Billy, was it?
I believe it was Billy. Yeah,
a lesser Baldwin. They're all lesser Baldwins. Every single one of them. Except for Alec.
Right. Alex the Baldwin. Okay, so Doubt. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Must watch. Meh. What do you give it?
A thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Sorry.
All right. And like I said, if you want to take a good nap, it's a perfect nap show. You can skip all the things in the middle. That's when you nap.
I'm sorry. If you're my mom, it's a thumbs up.
Absolutely.
Watch it, Mom.
All All right. Well, Vicki, you sat down recently with Artie Lange to talk about the new HBO series Crashing.
Yeah. It's premieres on Sunday at 10:30, and it stars Pete Holmes, who's a comedian, and it was developed with Judd Apatow, and it is about Pete Holmes. I think not so long ago, because he's not old by any stretch of the imagination. His early years in stand-up comedy, where he crashed on a lot of friends' couches, friends who are much more famous and successful than he was, and what he learned from them. And I thought it was a really interesting show. It's not just like it's a behind the scenes look at stand-up comedy and what comedy means to a bunch of different people and what kind of community it is, which you will hear in my interview with Artie is not exactly how the real life stand-up comedy scene actually is.
Got it. All right. So you guys take a listen to Vicki's interview with Artie Lange. We will be back next week to talk more TV. We'll see what happens on those hometown dates on The Bachelor. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Remote Podcast, at @E_meds, and at Vicki High, VICKIHY.
So, congratulations on Crashing. I noticed you played yourself in the film Laugh, Killer, Laugh, and on the Jim Gaffigan show, and now on Crashing. And I was wondering if you're a little concerned about getting typecast.
No, this is actually it's the hardest character I play. It's hard to get in this guy's head.
Oh, really?
No, I love it. It's very simple because if I say something like improvisation or something, which Judd likes to do, they can never say, well, the character wouldn't say that. And I'm like, well, yeah, he would. It makes it easier.
Well, how much of the show is improvised?
A lot. Judd really, almost all of my parts. Judd likes doing it that way. Judd has my book, my first book, and I found that out about a year ago, and he, knows all the stories in it, and that helped, when audition even. He just yelled out stories from the book sometimes, and I know them better than anybody, so it was fun,
So, did Pete and Judd always have you in mind for this primary mentor role you play on Crashing, or could it have just been another comedian out there?
No, he didn't have me in mind specifically at all. I never met Pete before this. We knew each other's work, I always liked each other's work, but I never met him. Judd I met briefly at the Comedy Cellar in the summer of 2015 when they were shooting Trainwreck in New York. Oh. He was coming into the cellar every night, as was I, because I was working on my last special, and when you do that, you got to be there every night, sort of. He was there. Getting back in a stand-up, trying new material. We'd be up at the table waiting to go on stage, and he was really a pleasant guy. And I think this character, he said, well, let Artie come in and try it. And, I did well enough in the audition, I think, to where they liked it. And to the point where the first show's called Artie Lange. It's surreal.
Yes, it is.
It's really surreal. It's great.
Given your personal demons and what you've gone through in your life, did you ever think you'd make it to the point where you'd sort of be this Yoda figure to a younger generation of comedians?
Am I? I don't even know I was.
On the show you are, certainly.
Well, yeah. Actually, a lot of guys. The most flattering thing a comic ever said to me was, a younger comic ever said to me was that the book Too Fat to Fish was their textbook. He said that. That was really a sweet thing. Whether it's true or not, he made me feel good. And he said that if they teach stuff like stand-up in college, they should make your first book Too Fat to Fish the textbook. That was the most the best compliment I ever got, because you do want to help people. No, I never thought that at all. I never thought anybody would try to take advice from me on any level. But I am able to tell the guys, not how to be funny. I'm certainly not the funniest guy around, but how to not step on landmines that I did, and they're not all so obvious. They just don't do drugs. There's other things I saw that I can help them out with. So it's a great feeling.
Well, what are the less obvious ones than, don't do drugs and don't land in jail?
Well, okay. The agent situation. Mm-hmm. The agent and manager, okay. Every single comic that I knew when I was coming up who was successful had an agent and a manager. I didn't know the difference between either one. And so I got an agent and a manager. There are if I was, mentoring a young comic or I was friendly with him, if the kid was going to hire a manager or an agent, I just know the good ones and the bad ones well enough to where I said, dude, let me talk to the guy for 3 minutes. It could be on the phone, and I'll tell you whether to do it.
What do you ask him in those 3 minutes that gives you that answer?
I ask him, "Are you a scumbag?" No, you could. There's a certain way people talk, and there's a phony way. And I'll give you an example. LA has speed bullshitters. Okay. I'll tell you what speed bullshitter. They have so many types of bullshitters. They have what I call a speed bullshitter. Speed bullshitter will say something that's such incredible bullshit that even they can't believe it came out of their mouth. So what they do is they rail it back like 2 times real quick with lesser bullshit to compensate. Like, here's an example. A speed bullshitter will say, "This guy we're having dinner with tonight is Jack Nicholson's nephew." It's his son. He knows him. Last night I had sex with Jennifer Aniston. I met her. I watched Friends. We're sitting in tonight. We're sitting in George Steinbrenner's seats. We're in the parking lot. We're watching home. And there's little tells they have that they don't even know they do. Another time, another thing that tells if you complain to your manager one time I complained to my manager that my agent at UTA for films was never calling me. So sure enough, 10 minutes later, the UTA guy calls me. Like, I don't know the manager's head to call him. It's ridiculous. But what he said was he's in Coldwater Canyon on a speakerphone, and he goes like this. He goes, "Artie, haven't talked to you in a while, but it's Jay over at UTA. I was just at Universal talking about Guess Who, you." Now, when someone talks to you like a 3-year-old, that is a sign. I could tell in 2 seconds.
Well, one thing that I thought Crashing was really interesting, it reveals this very supportive and very generous world of stand-up comics, but I didn't know how true to life is that. From what you're telling me just now, it seems like it's pretty true to life.
Well, it's true to life, but in a very small percentage. Like, most comics are not helpful. They're very selfish, but the good thing about in acting, actors tend to be fake. They smile and stab you in the back. The good thing about comics is they tell you, I am not rooting for you. I want you to fail, and the worst thing I could say is you do well. But there's a small percentage of guys that do help each other out. So it's true, but not for the whole part of it.
I was wondering, after you hit rock bottom and you got kicked off the Howard Stern show, did you feel that from your fellow comics? Like, did you feel blackballed, that you were too damaged to touch, that they stayed away from you?
No. Oh, God, no. The direct opposite's true. The Comedy Cellar, the people that run it, there's a woman named Esty and a guy named Noam who run it, and they could not have been nicer. They're like family to me. I've been going. I always said to them, I didn't consider myself back in the business after I got in a tragic situation, and I thought I was out of the business. I didn't consider myself back till I played the Comedy Cellar. They never turned me down. The first time after I stabbed myself, I went and I did a set and it made the highlight of page 6 on New York Post. It was the first article and about how the Cellar was supportive of me, and people like David Tell and Russ Maneve, another amazing comic, Louis C.K. They would see my me struggling with new material about what happened to me, and they would be supportive. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm. The show also lets you talk a little bit about your podcast, Artie Quitter. You invite Pete on the show in the 6th episode. It seems very casual on the show. It's like at your dining room table.
Right.
Is that what it's really like? And did you have it's what?
I don't say it's even more casual. I lay on my couch. I'm making 6 figures a year from the podcast, literally laying down on my couch, just saying stuff I would say to a football game anyway.
So I mean, there's no grand plan when you started it, like, oh, it's going to be this, and I'm going to talk about this. It's just whatever comes out of your mouth.
There's no theme to it. I literally put CNN or Fox News on, and I just riff. It's fun. It's so much fun. Did working with Howard Stern for so many years, did that have an influence on your podcast? Oh my God, yeah. Howard, I worked. I knew Howard. Knew of Howard's show as a fan since I was 13. My father turned me onto it. My father climbed moose for a living. He came home one day after working hard in the van. He said, "You're coming to work with me tomorrow." It was the summer. I said, "Why?" He goes, "You got to hear this guy on the radio. He's so funny." So it was a bond between me and my dad. And when I got there, I got to work 3 feet from the best guy who ever did it. And I was there for 8.5 years, and am totally influenced. I steal his moves all the time, especially in interviewing. And without him, there'd be nothing right now, Howard. And my father died long before I got into show business. But if he, or anybody in my neighborhood for that matter, saw me on the show, the Howard Stern show, as a co-host, it would be like I was a senator, a U.S. senator. A senator would be less exciting for him.
You've said a lot of good things about Howard over the years. You've said, a few months ago in your podcast, you said some not so good things, although I think you tried to couch it as good things. I was wondering, do your feelings about Howard kind of like ebb and flow? Where do you guys stand right now?
Well, like any other friendship, they ebb and flow. But right now, it's a big ebb, or whatever that is. Listen, Howard doesn't talk to me. And me and Howard, for a long period of time, I was on the show 8.5 years. And for 6 to 7 years of that, me and Howard were not only great on the air, we were great friends off the air. My girlfriend, the first 5 years on the show, Dana, got along with Beth very well. And we would double date a lot. We'd have dinner in the city. I'd talk to him, and we'd give each other advice. And it was amazing. It was surreal that I was friends with, one of my heroes. But I became a junkie, and I was always a drug addict. But heroin didn't come in a big way till I had done the road too much, and I overextended myself. It was nothing but my fault. Howard tried to help me, and I just did the road too much because the money was 3 times more than my father would make in a year, and I got addicted to the money. Mm-hmm. And then I had to be nocturnal on the weekends and have like a paper route hours during the week. And I tell you, I had drugs come up, drugs come down, and then I tried heroin around 2004, and I chased it for 7 years, and I became a full-blown junkie. And when you do that, after helping me and trying to help me immensely, they tell you in rehab you might lose some relationships that you cherish, and Howard's one of them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, just taking back my last question, back to stand-up. I know you've done a lot of TV. Your podcast is very popular, but it seems like stand-up is what you're really all about. And I was wondering, what do you get personally, besides money, out of doing stand-up?
Oh my God! It's every comic wants to starts out with this goal. If they're a good comedian, want to be a good comedian. They want to have a connection with the audience. They want the audience to become like a friend. So when you do stand-up for a crowd that's near to you, they know you, and you don't have to explain yourself. In other words, it's like no exposition in a movie. If you see the first one and love it, in the sequel, you don't have to explain who, Al Pacino is in The Godfather. You know him already. He's Michael. And you want the first part of your career to be like the first movie, and the rest, if they love the first movie, to be the sequel where they know you. And it's just like telling jokes to a buddy. And that's what it's become for me through the Stern Show and hard work at Mad TV and sketches and my own stand-up. And now the podcast with a whole group of new fans. It's the intimacy you get from the radio. For 8.5 years, I drove to work with them every morning. And I'm a very flawed person. And Howard created an atmosphere to where it's like family, and they want to help you. When I see the fans, it's the greatest thing. I do feel like they're family, but they're family who I charge $60 to hear me talk.
Well, good luck. Good luck with that. And I really enjoyed Crashing, and thank you so much for speaking with me.